Coming up on AFL Tonight, Boomer Bombshell. North Melbourne show the game's record hold at the door, along with 3 of his veteran teammates. Our chief reporter Jake Nile is out at Arden Street for all the fallout, plus he has details about the player that North will be able to keep because of this bold move. Plus we head to Adelaide. The Crows are flying, heading towards the finals. We speak to their ruckman, Sam Jacobs. Hello and welcome to a massive edition of AFL Tonight. I'm Tom Chadwick. We begin with the big news story of the day. North Melbourne telling 4 of its veterans they will not receive contracts for 2017. Let's head straight to our reporter, and it is good evening to Drew Jones, who is at Arden Street. Drew, a landmark day at the Kangaroos.
Good evening to you, Tom. It certainly was. 10 minutes before Brad Scott's weekly press conference, the news broke, and it shocked us in the nature of the news and also the timing as well, given it's round 23, just 1 game to go in the regular season. We knew there was a number of key players out of contracts, one of which was Brent Harvey. We thought perhaps he would play on next year. His form's been really good. That isn't the case. And Drew Petrie, Michael Ferrito and Nick Del Santo join him on the way out of North Melbourne. This will be their last season and potentially only a couple of games to go in their career, Tom. So Brad Scott spoke individually to the 4 players yesterday, telling them that their time at North was up. Their reactions, a mixture of shock and perhaps disappointment, maybe anger. We don't know the full extent of that yet. All the players were told today just before they went out to train, and surely would have been a shock to most of them. So Brad Scott addressed the media, a really candid press conference, but after he did that, we tried to catch the players coming off the training track. 1,337 games between these 4, and we spoke briefly with Brent Harvey and Drew Petrie.
Thanks for coming down today. Appreciate the turnout and everything, but we'll speak a bit more once the season sort of filters out, once the season's done.
Fair decision. I'll talk at appropriate time. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Brent, can we just have a couple of quick words?
Maybe a little bit soon.
So, Drew, it was a bold decision by the football club and the football department. Why did they take this extreme step?
You're absolutely right, Tom. It was a bold decision, perhaps one that may define Brad Scott's coaching tenure here at North Melbourne. So they made a couple of really key points, or he made a couple of key points. This decision was not just about 2017. It was about the future of the club. They want those young players to come through and start making their mark, and they couldn't do that while he had these reliable veterans that he's leaned on for much of his career here at North Melbourne. Drew Petrie has been a key player for them. He said in the presser that often when they had a problem, Drew Petrie was the man that would fix it. They'd send him forward, they'd send him into the ruck, they'd move him into the back line. And of course we know Brent Harvey's career has been so wonderful here at North Melbourne. And Michael Ferrito, a great club man, and Nick Del Santo, he said perhaps they wouldn't have made those 2 preliminary finals without him. So they've all played key parts, but they know that going forward, this is a decision that's not just going to affect next season and right now. It's going to affect perhaps the next decade, and perhaps an admission, Tom, that the premiership window is closing and they need to start thinking about the future. They're going to go all out to try and win the premiership this season, but moving forward they need to plan for the younger players to come through. So here's Brad Scott, clearly emotional, speaking about the players today.
I spoke to all 4 boys yesterday, and it's easily the hardest day of my coaching career, but I can understand, I can empathise the disappointment and the emotion that's involved in this. Well, I understand a lot of fans will be disappointed, particularly with some of the players, but I'm charged with the responsibility of putting this football club in a really strong position over the long term. Even the most optimistic person would think that the 4 boys, whilst capable of playing next year, would probably finish next year. So it would mean that we've denied opportunity for young players for another year. It would mean that there's a whole raft of things that go into building a list and sustaining a list. But we'll continue to look at our options around trading, around free agency, around trying to build the best football team we can. But we cannot continue to have these guys on the list, and because I'm not ashamed to say I love these guys, and I love them because of what they've given to this football club, and if they're there, I'll play them, and that would not be in the best interest of our club in the long term. They're determined to get every last ounce of energy out for this football club over the next, hopefully, 5 weeks. Boomer will tell you himself it's not about the individual. It's just not. It wasn't about the individual when he was 31 in 2009, and it's not now in 2016. So it's about where the club's positioned right now and for the medium to long-term future.
So there's Brad Scott. Now, Chief AFL reporter Jake Niall is with me to discuss all the fallout here. You've been speaking to some people around the club today. What's the reaction been? What's going on moving forward?
Well, North, of course, have to justify their decision. It's a highly contentious one. Really, Brent Harvey is the big one. The other three, I don't think there's any real surprise. I also spoke to Brent Harvey's manager, Shane Casley, who also manages Drew Petrie. He said, just by the way, that it's highly unlikely that Brent Harvey would go to another club, because that's a question that's already been asked, because Drew's playing well enough to play on. I think that it's certainly a brutal call. There's been while I was in the reception, there was someone cancelling their membership. There's been a significant backlash on social media from North people. A lot of them are upset about the Boomer call, and Brad Scott certainly, it was very courageous.
So what about Boomer? 30 possessions, 3 goals against Sydney last week. Not that long ago, Brad Scott was singing his praises about the fact that he's playing as well as ever. Is this the right call?
Well, it's the wrong call in terms of Brent, if you just did it in isolation of Brent Harvey. But North don't see it that way, and I don't see it that way. I think it's the correct call for where the club is placed. I don't think it's harsh on Boomer, very harsh. If he's at a club that was closer to a premiership, he'd be playing on. If they were 15 and 5, I think he'd be playing on, but they're not, and they're not going as well, and they have to rebuild and get these younger players in, and that's why it's happened, and I think it's right.
So we've got Brad Scott speaking about Brent Harvey after his record-breaking game.
I think the thing that impresses me the most is that he's not just limping to the line. You know, he completes every training session. He sets the standard in terms of professionalism at the club. He really leads the way in work rate. So he's broken the all-time games record, arguably at the peak of his powers, which is something to behold. So
Brad Scott there, a massive call. He's so praising Brent Harvey so much. A lot has changed in 26 days. Is this his defining decision as a coach of North Melbourne?
Yes. Well, it's the biggest decision that he's made, yes, because he's going to cop so much grief for it, and because he's still playing so well, as we've said. Important to note, Drew, that North Melbourne are in negotiations with Daniel Wells, another of the older players who's over 30, about a new contract. So clearly he's staying on. And I believe that more likely than not, Jared Waite will be offered a contract. So I suppose that's the other part of the story, is that people are going to compare Brent Harvey's position to that of other older players. And that's where Brad Scott has made the tough call. I suppose it comes down to the coverage they feel they have with the younger players who have to come through. And that's where Boomer's been very unlucky. It's a huge day in football.
Well, we've seen the contrast, haven't we, between Geelong and Hawthorn, the way they've handled it. Stevie J left, Paul Chapman left. We've seen Hawthorn keep their stars, perhaps a reflection of the success that they've had and maybe the selflessness of those players. Is this an admission that the Kangaroos' premiership window is over?
Yes, I think so. I don't think they're not going to say that while they're about to play a final series, but yes, it's acknowledgement that they've had a crack. Don't forget, Drew, that they've topped up with free agents. They brought in Del Santo, they brought in Waite, they brought in Higgins, and they haven't quite got there. They were in the preliminary final 2 years running, and they win their first 9, and now they're on 12 wins with 1 game left. So yes, their window, they've fallen short. They have to do a very quick rebuild.
What's the good that can come from this move?
Younger players getting games, and a sense of purpose that the club now has, which maybe they wouldn't have had they not made that decision. I think there's a saying that if you're not part of the birth of the next good team, you're part of the death of the current one.
Do you think that he'll come to regret this decision one day, Brad Scott?
Well, my experience of coaches in those positions is they don't. They tend to always justify their decisions. If he went to another club and helped them win a premiership, then obviously, but I don't think that's, as his manager Shane Casley said, highly unlikely that he will play somewhere else. So, no, I don't think he will.
Thanks very much for joining us, Jake. Tom, massive day here at North Melbourne. The career of Brent Harvey over. It's hard to believe it's happened, but here we are. Back to you, Tom.
Yeah, massive day indeed. Drew Jones and Jake Niall, thank you. So then, Brent Harvey, who'll finish his North Melbourne career at the end of this season in what has been a ridiculous career, really. He'll leave Arden Street as the AFL Games record holder, which is a mark that many believe will never be broken. An AFL Premiership play in '99. And he's been selected in the All-Australian team 4 times and won the Kangaroos Best and Fairest award on 5 times. Clearly one of the shin boners, one of the greatest shin boners of all time. Let's touch base now with our AFL 360 team. Hello to Jared Waitley. Jared, a massive day for North Melbourne. Have they made the right call?
I don't think it's desirable to have it happen like this all on one day, given what lies ahead, what they're walking into and the experienced final team that they are. The hard-headed side of it, I think all bar Brent Harvey, the first two, Petrie and Ferrito, are clearly right. Del Santo's sort of in the balance as to where you think you are. I think Harvey's wrong. I think as a half-forward flanker, he's given terrific service this year and he could easily roll into that next year. So I don't think you can lump them all in together and have an approved or not approved. And I think Harvey probably deserves better than this.
Yeah, what do you make of the timing? For me, it's a staggering one. How's it going to impact them on the eve of the finals campaign?
That is such an intangible. I think it has, well, even a little bit of what we've seen from the player group today. There's a palpable sense of shock surrounding it. So it will either galvanise the players together and drive them onto something, or it has the capacity to rip at the fabric. And I honestly think we'll need hindsight to be able to answer that.
Robbo is back joining Jared Waitley at the 360 desk. Thank you, Jared, on Legends Night. Kingy and McClure, they're in alongside Bomber Thompson for another episode of the Bomber Diaries. Plus, a good guest, Geelong defender Tom Lonergan. He's going to join the boys as well, 10 years after that horrific injury. And you can catch it live on Fox Footy, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And remember, you can keep across all the latest footy news wherever you are via the Fox Sports app. You can simply live stream AFL Tonight. Well, coming up, Brent Harvey isn't the only legend on the way out. We're going to hear from Matthew Pavlich before his final game. And Sam Jacobs joins us from Adelaide as the Crows look to seal up a top 2 spot on Friday night. Yes, indeed, it was a brutal showdown for many reasons between two teams that do not like each other. That is an absolute understatement. Star ruckman for the Adelaide Crows, Sam Jacobs, joins me now. Sam, hello to you. Before we chat about the Crows, the big news today coming out of North Melbourne. Are you surprised that Boomer won't go on next year, given how well he played against you boys this year?
Hello, Chatty. How you going, mate? Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, it's a pretty big call, retiring 4 champions of the league. But you know, I guess that's North Melbourne's decision. We'll see how we go next year with it.
OK, one question on your good mate Eddie Betts. Are you satisfied with the way that Port and Adelaide handled that unsavoury incident from the weekend?
Yeah, I am. I think you know, I thought Port Adelaide were fantastic, acting very quickly and swiftly, and you know, obviously Adelaide, we did things really well too, and the AFL. So I thought everyone worked really well, and thought Eddie spoke really well yesterday in terms of educating everyone, and you know, I think that's probably the best outcome to come of it.
Another topical incident from that match, of course, the Rory Sloane suspension. Is Rory a bit stiff, do you believe?
Oh, yeah, I guess, you know, from a player's point of view, we're disappointed that he's not going to be there on Friday night, but also we understand that that's the ruling that got decided, and, you know, we can't do much about it. So, you know, we'll move on pretty quickly from it and look forward to seeing who's going to get the opportunity on Friday night.
Yeah, who do you think will get that opportunity? Who's been playing well in the seconds?
Yeah, there's a few guys that have, you know, really pushing their claim. We saw Cameron Ellis-Yolman a couple of weeks against Brisbane, got a chance. Dean Gore's another one. Mitch Griggs playing well. Riley Knight's come in and playing really well. So, you know, we like to think we've got some depth. That SANFL team's in pretty good nick, so they've been putting pressure on all year. So it'll give one of those guys a chance to play well.
Looking forward to this week, of course, you would have come up against Nick Natanui. Did you see the game on Friday night? You must really feel for his plight at the moment, given the knee injury.
Yeah, I watched West Coast last couple of games, the one against the Giants and obviously Friday night as well. It's disappointing to lose such a, at the moment, a champion of the game. He's so exciting to watch, and I'm no different from anyone else. So I love watching Nick Nat play. He's so exciting, and it's not great that he's injured, but they've got a few other quality ruckmen, so I'm still going to have a work cut out for me on Friday.
Speaking of which, we are hearing and we understand that potentially Jonathan Giles could come in to replace Nick Nat. How much do you know about Jonathan Giles? I assume you've played on him quite a bit throughout your career.
Yeah, a fair bit actually, Tommy. Me and Joffa are the same age. We came through underage in the SANFL together, so I've actually played quite a fair bit of footy against him. And one thing I know about Joffa, he's really competitive, and he's a good player in his own right. So I'm sure he's really excited to get the opportunity to come over here, play in front of his home friends and family, and try and play well for the finals.
You mentioned just then you've watched West Coast Eagles play over the last couple of weeks. Of course, they got over the line against Greater Western Sydney a fortnight ago, and then took the three-time premiers Hawthorn to the cleaners on Friday night. So they're hitting some form, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I watched them probably a month or 6 weeks ago against Collingwood, and the one thing that's changed is their work around the contest. Their contested ball numbers were through the roof. Their contested marking was really impressive the other night, and they've got some real quality tools at each end, with McGovern playing almost all Australian form, and my old teammate Josh Kennedy who's doing good things as always. So it's going to be a really great challenge for our tools.
Just going back to the showdown, it was a pretty good test, wasn't it, considering before that you'd had 3 fairly easy games. I know you missed a couple of them through injury, but considering you're about to embark on a finals campaign, the showdown was a really good test and a real finals-like atmosphere, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it was. Full credit to Port. They came and played really well, and we knew going into the game that even though they've got a few out at the moment, they've still got some real high-end talent, and they certainly came to play. Blokes like Wines, Gray, Boak, did a lot of good things, and they really made a good game. So it was important for us to get the win, considering ladder positions, and it was a great test, as you said as well.
If you beat the West Coast on Friday night, you are all but certain of securing a top 2 finish, and knowing that you guys are pretty hard to beat at Adelaide Oval. How important is a top 2 finish if you want to win the flag?
Yeah, well, history suggests top 4 is where you want to be to give yourself the best chance, and top 2 is even better. Considering we've got, as players, we feel we've got a big advantage here with the crowd right behind us. So, if we win, we're still a massive chance for top 2, but lose, there's still every chance we could finish 5th. So just shows how important it is, and, Pike will make sure we're really prepared for this game. He obviously knows a lot about the West Coast Eagles, and, we'll go out there and hopefully get the win.
Sam Jacobs, always good to talk to you. Good luck for this weekend.
Thanks, mate. Cheers for having me.
OK, well, West Coast fans will be relieved to hear that their ruck stocks are not completely dismantled heading into Friday night's clash with Adelaide. Eagles coach Adam Simpson has shrugged off any concerns that big man Scott Lysette would be ruled out with that lingering knee injury.
Oh, he'll be fine. Yeah, he got a knock to his knee, but he's had that before, so he's been managing that all year. So, we'll get him through. He's had this type of knock to his knee 2 or 3 times, and he's always come up, and he's pulled up really well. So just management early in the week, and he'll train tomorrow and he'll play. Yeah, look, I think Scott's ready to take on the mantle. He's got no choice at the moment, but the fact he's had experience for 5 or 6 weeks in that role, under a little bit of duress when he was playing as well with his body, but I think he's performed really well this year. I think he's probably had his best season so far, and yeah, we're keen to see what he's got.
OK, staying in the West, and Matthew Pavlich will play his last game on Sunday in what will be an emotional day in Perth. The former skipper made his debut as an 18-year-old back in 2000 and says there are no regrets, even if he didn't win a flag. Adam Papalia has more from Fremantle.
Fremantle fans haven't had a lot to cheer about this season, but on Sunday they get to celebrate the career of their greatest ever player and say farewell to Matthew Pavlich.
To be able to have the choice and this sort of turnout is a privilege, and I'm fully aware that it's a big week for us all.
Not one to get too emotional, Pavlich says he was quite measured when he addressed the players. He knows he's made the right decision and has no regrets.
Could I have done more? And the answer is no. Is there anything left? The answer is after about 5 p.m. Saturday there will not be. And am I fulfilled? And in a lot of ways I am fulfilled, I am content.
While football is finishing, Pavlich is looking forward to the next phase and will make it all about family.
Take some time off. Lauren's about to pop, so is that the right way? Choice of words wasn't great. The 18-month plan is to take 5 to 6 months off and smell the roses a little bit, disconnect, and spend some time with people that I've really sacrificed a lot of time away from.
Pavlich has certainly ruled out coaching in the short term, but is already working on the skills of young son Jack.
You should really take those.
Pavlich leaves a remarkable legacy. A 6-time All-Australian and 6-time Best and Fairest winner, the 34-year-old is a future AFL Hall of Famer. He'll be hard to replace, but believes Freo will be okay without him.
I've, along with a few other key people that are in the room, have planted a tree, and that tree has bared some pretty good fruit over the recent picking seasons. But I'm about to leave the paddock, and the next owners of the paddock and the tree are going to come along, and they'll have some great fruit to pick from here on.
Pavlich has told his team not to rely on emotion on Sunday against the Bulldogs, but with Pavlich currently on 699 goals, he'd expect his teammates may be looking for him to help him get to number 700.
Well, we talk about footy as a game of courage, and no one exemplifies that more than Tom Lonergan. The Geelong defender underwent emergency surgery and lost a kidney back in 2006 when he was crunched going back with the flight of the ball.
As a 22-year-old, you think that you've got this great life ahead of you and nothing will knock you down, but it's things like that can turn your world upside down, and certainly my footy career upside down. And I think the thing I took out of it was just have a greater perspective on life and not to take anything for granted.
10 years on, and as a very different life-changing trip to the hospital, Lonergan has plans for the weekend.
Saturday's the due date, so yeah, fingers crossed, legs crossed that maybe it falls on the Sunday.
What's the plan? Is there a contingency in place that you potentially won't play Saturday?
Oh look, the contingency would be, I suppose, I'd like to be there for the birth of my first child, I suppose, but we'll just have to play it by ear, and I'll talk it over with the club throughout the week.
Lonergan is using the anniversary of the incident to call on fans to donate blood. Hawthorn have been handed a suspended $10,000 fine for covering a broadcast camera in the change rooms. It's been revealed it was Jonathan Segler himself and not a club official who hung a towel over the camera before medicos assessed his knee on Friday night. It was later confirmed that Segler had ruptured his ACL. Greater Western Sydney will throw everything they've got at North Melbourne on Saturday, despite the possibility of a rematch in a fortnight. The Giants currently sit 5th, and if the ladder stays as it is after round 23, they will play the 8th place Roos in an elimination final.
We'll be full steam ahead. There'll be no sort of holding back from our end. We look forward. We know any side that's capable of winning 9 in a row is a really, really good side, and they've had their injury concerns over the last probably two and a half months. They're starting to get some players back, but and I'm pretty sure they'll attack it 100% as well.
Cameron says defender Matt Buntine has recovered from the head knock that he suffered in the win over Fremantle and will put his hand up for selection this weekend. Alrighty, recapping our top story tonight, and North Melbourne have dropped a bombshell on the eve of the finals, with veterans Brent Harvey, Drew Petrie, Michael Ferrito and Nick Dal Santo not offered contracts for next year. North President James Brayshaw has just appeared on Melbourne radio and has admitted the club needs an aggressive reset. Tomorrow on AFL Tonight, ruckman Shane Mumford is our special guest ahead of the Giants' clash with North Melbourne and Mummy's battle with their star big man in Todd Goldstein. That is all we have time for on AFL Tonight. We'll see you soon.